Yes, I was saying that most, even in spirituality, even those who consider themselves spiritual or religious, don't actually give much reality to God. If you notice in day-to-day life, most people in Sanghas, most people in spirituality don't live as if God is real. You see? So you can feel like even if even if they feel that God is real, they feel like He must be at some great distance from us. So only when we do a particular thing, like pray in a certain way, only then can He hear us or something like that. But He's here right now. Every single moment. More than we are aware of our life, He is aware of our life. More than we, with our tools, can be aware of what our life is and has been. He is aware. You see, but we don't live like that. We feel like we may meet Him only in a temple, only when we do some special puja. But that is for us, for us to drop the veil of ignorance. It is not to bring Him closer to us. He is always here.
Why is God allowing this veil of ignorance to come?
Because that is the play, that is the Leela, that is the Maya. And the mistaken notion that we can understand the mind of God by saying, okay, but why does He do that? Why is there injustice in this world? Why is there this? Why is there that? You see? Is because in humanity we have this arrogant notion that we can unravel the mind of God, but we would not expect our pet to understand. You see, if our pet started, if you were a dog whisperer or a horse whisperer or something, and why is God allowing this to happen? Hey, keep quiet, you're just a horse. You have no right to ask a question about God. You see, but we don't apply the same thing to us. Or if a plant suddenly started saying, why has God created such an unfair world? You're just a plant, keep quiet. But the problem with the mind is that it can ask the big question. We had a few satsangs about this. The root cause of human suffering is that in the mind we have the ability to ask the big questions: what is the purpose of life? Why am I here? What does God look like? Why does God do things? Is there karma? Is there time? Is there? We can ask all these big questions, right? But what can we receive in response? What can we receive in response to the big question? You can just receive a concept, a notion. So, a concept which is then acceptable to us, we call that the right answer. Ah, thank you, sir. Good, good. A concept which is unacceptable to us, you see. But to truly come to a meeting with God means going beyond our conceptual frameworks. What do we recognize which is beyond ideas and notions? So often, for a long time, I used to say that instead of asking why, ask who. Same three letters, no? Only one alphabet changed. You see? So changed from why to who, because the mind hates who, it loves why. Like why? I want to know this, I want to know that. But what have we really known in the 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of our life? Tell me one why. Why do we exist? Any why. Tell me one reason that we actually know absolutely. So, satsang in some sense is an attack on sense making. You meaning making. That's why many times it can sound like completely absurd nonsense because it is meant to. But the idea, like you read sometimes, when I first read Zen, and I was a pure Vedantin, and ये क्या बकवास है? And what is there in this? Some cow is grazing on the field. It smiles. What does that tell me about Brahman or my reality? They'll have some absurd thing like this only. Is it? So, what is that? So, it took me quite some time before I could grasp the. And if you can say that you grasp the essence of Zen, it is not Zen. But to grasp in some sense what it is pointing to has to go beyond meaning making and sense making. Otherwise, what would have happened is that all of this would have been published in a book. In fact, when we were young, we used to have these books, Tell Me Why. Yeah. And then Tell Me Why, then still more Tell Me Why, more Tell Me Why, even more. There's a big series that my father got for me. Still there. So, so that is why we've been trained to ask why, but not who. Who are we? Who am I? Who is God? What answer will we take to death? Yeah, Yamraj is standing in front of us and we say, I have the answers. Say, no, you're dead. What is the answer we're going to take to death? What is beyond life and death? So, what we should really do is ask him. To ask him, you have to meet him. So, meet him. Let's not speculate on the answers. Ask him. God, why are you creating so much trouble in the world? Ask him. Is he here or not? See, that is the fundamental point. Is God real? Then is God here? If God is real and God is here, what stops our communion with God?
For a long time, I underestimated this power of belief. So I always thought I resonated more with attention, really playing with it and trying to direct it. But I felt that now, with the belief, because it's moment by moment, being under the hypnosis, and I don't realize that I'm under it. Like I could sit playing with attention, but rest of the day I can keep believing. So that's what I realized it recently about this belief, and that's what you've been saying about this.
Right.
There is a disbelief also in God's reality. Like there is a turning.
There's belief or disbelief?
Disbelief, like in the sense that I know God is real, but at this, how to say this? Like, say, when I'm talking to God or something, like I'm talking with faith, but there's some part that like God talks, God hears, God knows. It's in the mind, but there's some disbelief, like this, how to say, I don't know. It's like I see the lack of faith also. Like this morning, I was having a conversation. I was very clear talking to God. Mm. But I could also sense somewhere something was lurking, like God is listening all the time, or God knows everything. Like something. How to say? I don't know.
I think most belief is disbelief in God.
Yes. That's why I go on with my mind because
That's why last time we were talking about the difference between belief and faith.
Yeah.
Belief in God may be a helpful first step. You go from disbelief, I don't believe in God, to I believe in God. But that is only the first step. Most feel like that is enough. Faith is to trust your intuitive insight more than what your senses are showing you, more than what your mind is proposing.
like when you say, just ask Father if his hand like
Yeah, what is more real, God or this?
instantly it feels like I can see the hand.
Yeah.
So I know it is here.
Yeah.
Instantly that
Okay,
feels
so
more real.
You can see a hand?
Yeah.
Can you see a hand?
I can see the hand, yes. But
You can see.
I can see, but
the hand is
yes.
not seen.
Yes. Yeah. God is before
Is it?
seeing
So are you seeing fingers or a hand?
Yeah.
You're seeing a palm or a hand? You see, the minute we start to label our perception, we are no longer seeing. It's too much. We don't ever see what we label. A label is just a construct we put. Say, again, going to Zen today, I don't know why, but the Zen master said, I see no table, I see a slab of wood and four legs. Then they will say, I see no slab of wood, I see something, break it down. I don't see it. So our attempt to construct a notional version of reality from the world of perception is what gives rise to our narratives, our ego, and all the trouble. Now, independent of these narratives, what is apparent to you? Independent of any labeling. What is apparent?
That you're aware. I'm aware. Like when you said this, I'm aware that this is seeing, when I can say, yes, I am seeing.
And this I am, what can we say about that? So there are two ways to do this. The first way is that you will make I am also a label and get into concepts. So I read in this Upanishad, this is about the I am, all of that. The second is to be continue to be empty of the narrative and just check. Are you still here? But are you still here as something, as somebody, as either somebody or nobody? So what can we say about this I am? Presence. And whose presence? It's worth finding out. Because you're saying we dropped all the labels. and a presence remains. Yeah? This presence is where? Within yourself, although it may appear as if it is within the body, and the heart area is very usually referred to as the core of this presence. But there's a presence. Whose is it? Are you sure it's not Casper the Friendly Ghost? Whose is it? No, it's very absurd. Yeah? That there's a presence within us and we all okay to just neglect that. But is there something wrong with our toenail? We would go to 10 doctors to check it out. What's wrong? What's this? But there's a presence. होगा चलेगा देखेंगे. Huh? It's
Must be.
yes, but don't go with any inference. Don't go with any must be. Just keep checking. Does it have a boundary? Where does it start? Where does it end? Throw away all words. If the mind is telling you, yes, God said, I am that I am, forget about it. Leave it. I am that Maharaj said, forget it. Check for yourself.
Can I say that it is what sees? I mean, it's the seeing itself, the capacity, not that nice.
But who is it?
I don't know. I mean, it's not personal, that's for sure.
But who is it?
It doesn't feel like a who. I mean, it doesn't feel like a who.
Who is it? Whose presence is it? It's just a roving presence.
No, it doesn't feel like a presence. Presence feels like empathy.
आप किसके हो भाई मुझे पता नहीं. हाँ क्या कर रहे हो? Is it like that?
It's mine and it's God's, but it's not claiming that.
Yeah. But it's God. He's just presencing. Basically. You go to God. What can you do? I'm just being. Really, and sometimes in Advaita we reduce God to that.
Just being.
Just chilling, just a chill being. What can you do? Nothing, I'm
Sometimes when I ask my boyfriend, he says that.
What are you doing, man?
कुछ तो करो, you should catch hold of it and say, कुछ तो करो.
Do something. What you're doing is just being. But is it just being? Is it just being? All the fancy things we say about God, should we throw them? There you go. Just be. Supreme intelligence, omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, everything. None of it is true. Omnipresent. Omnipotent how? This little old presence sitting here, how is it omnipotent? How is it omnipresent, firstly? the light of this universe. That light in which the light of the sun shines. Bhagavan said, whose light is the sun shining in? This little old presence? Huh? No.
Yes.
Yes,
I mean, how would I see a whole dream in your head? I
Huh?
mean, that's what I was trying to say on this. That this present, or when you say if I remove every story away, and there's this awareness which doesn't go away. I mean, I don't know, but it's not personal. It's not personal. It's boundless. Beyond that, I don't know.
For me, Father, I think I can I can't find the boundary of it, but it's still very little.
Little.
It's the way I can't see that as an omnipresent or everything.
So where is it?
I know you're coming with this
Yeah.
question.
You already always preempts my question.
So you will ask where is the boundary? No, I don't have boundary. I don't know. But it still feels like it's surrounding the eye, surrounding my body. It's near
Surrounding the body.
or behind the body, or it's somewhere as a back.
Confirmed or speculative?
That's the best I
So
can
we have to
do.
be very careful of seems like.
Okay,
Really? Because what is another word for seems like?
really.
Maya. Maya is another word for seems like. That which seems like it is true, but is actually untrue, is Maya. So if we go with seems like, it is the realm of speculation and actually it is Maya. So don't just stop at seems like. If it seems like, dive into it deeper and confirm it.
So,
You see? So it seems like this is water, but then you can have a sip and confirm it. Coconut water. Like that you can confirm it. So don't go with seems like. Of course, all of this is seems like. But you know what I mean.
So again, if you go, so the first thing is get rid of narratives, and that can only happen for me. I see if there's no mind, then that's the only possibility. Otherwise, the first thing will come is narrative. And in that situation, when you said the God is as real as your path, so I can see that easiness, which is beyond that presence
Easiness,
or presence, which is beyond narratives. But still, I can't see that as omnipresent. I still see that as surrounding me or surrounding. It's still somewhere related to I am.
So what can happen is that sometimes we make a tag team between our mind and heart. You see? So we use our heart because we cannot find this without intuition. This is already we are using our heart. Now don't change the mode of knowledge. Stay there only. You see? And let all answers come from there. You see, otherwise what is happening is, and I enjoy sometimes we don't have broadcasts because I can speak a little more colloquially. What is happening sometimes is we are coming to the discovery and we go give it to the mind and say, अच्छा क्या सोचते हो इसके बारे में?
Trying to analyze.
Is this everywhere? नहीं लगता तो नहीं. So we're doing that tag teaming thing, which is not, which is detrimental. Because what do you think the mind will say? The mind will say, yes, you leave me, you found. So don't give your insights. You've made a beautiful chocolate cake. Don't give it to the mud factory, to paraphrase Guruji. Stay there. Stay there where you are absent of narratives and yet it is known that there is a presence here. That will tell you the rest of it also. You don't have to say, अच्छा present मिल गया अभी क्या?
I think So whatever phrases you use, then my mind is trying to fit in that experience, like God, likes God, or everything,
Yes.
and which is
Yes.
I can see what you're saying.
Yes. So it tries to make a new framework of reality, a new conceptual thing, and it'll try to fit that into that. And that's why all masters will constantly contradict themselves. They don't want you to collect ideas and say, okay, this is how it is, this is how. Go beyond this top story. And these children sang for me, the song from Satya, and I'll translate in English. But गोली मार भेजे में भेजा शोर करता है. Atmika had a very nice version of that. गोली मार भेजे में.
Vikas had sung that.
Because also sang it in Carnatic style. But it's a very potent song. भेजे की सुनेगा तो मरेगा कभी. God isn't going from the guy's like, I should have gone. He's speaking half in Hindi, I should have gone. I'm making no narratives, you're the only one who's making. So notice this tendency, most in spirituality have it. They will have true insight and then they will layer it in a coating of mental knowledge, which you don't need to have. So stay innocent. Stay empty, even if it feels uncomfortable, because you want to grasp at finality. So I know everything. But allow the heart to reveal. This gets only sweeter and sweeter and more beautiful. And if I woke up one day and I knew everything, and there was no deeper insight to be had, that would be quite dull. So new insights are discovered, new ways of expressing it show up. It's more and more beautiful. It's more and more awful also, in the sense of more and more full of awe. Awesome. As you start looking at reality, look at how awesome reality is compared to what our notion of what any of this was. Incomparable. There's so many awesome things. The highest being in the universe. Okay? The most intelligent, the most loving, the most compassionate, the light of all lights. Where does he live? She said, very innocently. He lives there. And that itself is stunning. Like she was saying earlier, Radha, that you put a curtain of disbelief somewhere. You see, and many times that somewhere that disbelief comes from just wanting to have a regular life. The mind will come and say, don't lose your mind. What will people say? You have responsibilities. The world will laugh at you. So that is to say that my mind is now more intelligent and telling me how to run this life rather than the intelligence that is running this whole universe. Because we make categories and we say, okay, all this intelligence that we see around us, we will say, oh, that's nature. What is nature? Nobody ever questions these things. They say, oh, nature is a beautiful thing. Even atheists, no? They say, nature is so beautiful. What are you talking about? What is nature?
Oh.
Yes, but even an atheist will say nature is so beautiful. They're talking about an intelligence, an intelligent being who is evolving all of this, who is making the plants grow and the birds fly. It's in nature.
And actually, we are nature.
We are nature. So be careful of categorization because we just like, oh, that's nature. It's not God. So you've given godly qualities to some other word and you feel like I can. It's strange. The more you deepen intuitively, you will start noticing the absurdity of the world also more and more. Anything for avoidance of looking at the one that is here. That is basically the main objective of the mind. Anything to avoid. The minute you start turning towards it, what happens? What happens?
Temptations.
Temptation. Those things which are looking regular and normal suddenly start stunning. To grasp at things. Because to the mind, to find this is to die. To come to God, to the mind is to die. I used to say this earlier that to the mind that which is nothing, not even nothing beyond nothing, is that which is actually everything. What is that? जहाँ कुछ नहीं भी नहीं था, वही था, वही था. So this is the lifetime project that I'm giving you. If you don't feel like there's a presence within you, you must dedicate your life to finding it. If you feel like it is there, but I don't know who it is, maybe it is biological, then dive deeper into it. Find out why are all these strange people saying this is God. They put their photos up on the walls. Those who told us God lives within you. हर घट में रहता है नाम. Within every body around it. Why are they saying like this? They're trying to fool us. And who lives here besides this presence? Are they two present here? Because it's quite obvious actually that there's only this one presence. That must be God, it must be Ram, it must be Krishna, it must be Jesus. But we don't have to infer this. We don't have to rely on the must be. We can dive deep into it and check. So this is the project. And as far as the Absolute is concerned, only in the light of this is the Absolute discovery possible. But that is not up to us. Could it be true that we spend our whole life chasing things here, but actually the true treasure was here? And then how many different ways will the sages remind us? The diamond is in your pocket, you're sitting on the treasure begging for food. Right? कबीर जी said, लाल लाल तो सब कहीं हैं, सबके पल्ले लाल. गांठ खोल देखा नहीं, दुनिया से गया कंगाल. Everybody is looking for what is lal ruby and what is it? What is the red colored precious stone? So everybody chasing ruby. But in the palla, we have this. In the olden days, everybody would carry this cloth, and they would keep the valuables tied in a knot in that. So everybody in the knot within them, and the ruby is there. You see, but nobody opened the knot and checked what is there, and they let this world a beggar. Kangar means no money, empty, all treasure. Very clearly, he has told us. So, what is he asking us to open up and check if there's a treasure there? So, the truth has been hidden in plain sight. And all the sages have told us as directly as possible. But the mind has made poems out of them, metaphors out of them. We don't take it literally. Or we just postpone. So be careful of this habit of postponing. No. It's here only, no? Now, as you deepen in this discovery, most of you is gone. You will not be able to place a reference to yourself. The me that you used to take yourself to be fading away. Because that me was just a belief system. We were talking about it last time. If you picked up the idea, oh, I want to watch the next F1 race. So if you don't pick it up, it's not part of your conditioning. But if you believe it, then you become that persona which wants to watch the next F1 race. So there could be a few in this room. So you become, then you will have something, then you'll have something. So as a combination of all your beliefs, you have created a unique persona which is called an individual. Then as you are meeting yourself deeply in your heart, you find that there is no landing space for these ideas. There's nowhere to hold them. Who do they belong to? So most of you means most of what that belief system is, that me, gets wiped clean more and more as you deepen in this.
Oh, can I share on that point that right now I'm aware of some desire arising that really wants to make a report, like about how great my time or life has been, like since I was last here, like because of what's being like discovered and honored more and more, and yet I can also see that feels less true or less real. It's like you have to pick up the character of the seeker to talk about how well that illusory one is doing, as opposed to actually just.
Yes. Actually, just is a very important point. So you're right that the mind the spiritual ego wants to pick up this seeker mode and say the seeker is doing so well and or badly, whatever. It's just two sides of the same coin. But or just sometimes the mind tricks us and says, or just it's better to keep quiet. See? It's better not to say anything at all. See? But that is to presume that the heart cannot speak. See? And if the heart could not speak, then satsang would not be possible. See? And if you were just hearing a very sophisticated mind coming to satsang, you would not come here. Because you have enough sophisticated minds around you. You don't need to come to satsang to hear that. You see? So the or just is allow the heart to speak if it wants to. And the mind puts a gateway to that and says, no, all words are mine. It's not true. The heart can use its mouth as well. So as we get used to remaining empty, you see, in the no mind, in the unborn, then often we will start to notice that our communication becomes heart to mouth. Yes. But
And I guess I just feel to share like what you just said about like all the sages, what they're pointing to, like but we don't take it literally. It feels like something shifted and it's like it's literal.
yes. Yes.
And also this about the postponing. Like yeah, it's you and like whenever. That something like the immediacy became real somehow. And it feels like there's been like an inverse. So it feels like previously, there was an awareness of the isness or whatever, but it felt like a place that could be visited and was visited at various moments throughout the day. And now it's more like flipped, and it's like life is actually being lived from that place, and maybe like the identification will go back to the mind temporarily, but because it's so unsavory compared to the natural state of being, like it's more quickly realized, and so like naturally like the abidance just comes back. So yeah.
Very good. So that is why also I'm emphasizing, this is a very good report, but just to give you some more, I'm emphasizing on this point of God being a living being within us, so that we don't look at the discovery as coming to a place like Columbus discovering what he thought was India, but actually going to America and things. So many times in Advaita we become like that. Okay, I look and I look and I look. There is awareness. Then that aware is now being. So that awareness being is I amness. So it's almost like we are discovering things as we are exploring. So they literally get taken as things. Yeah? It's not things that we are discovering, or places that we are discovering, but a living being.
And it sounds kind of weird to say this, because before I thought that I had a very good sense of like what we were referring to when we said like awareness or presence, but now like actually I don't feel that any of those labels can really convey. I really can't say like what it is, and that felt a bit jarring for a bit because I was like, but is this the presence? Is this the way of it? I just something recognizes or feels or knows intuitively that like this is intrinsically like the most valuable or just the most, it's the only real thing actually. But yeah, even like presence or awareness or like that doesn't really touch it. Yeah.
So they're best used as pointers when we are communicating, but we do not. Yes, I'm aware. Very good. I feel like what I've been trying to prod and provoke is the immediacy of this and the reality of this. Or the reality of this and the immediacy of this. In that order.
And also that definitely feels like, I think I've heard you say this before, it is completely like a different life.
Yes. Unrecognized.
So that has been like quite jarring because it's obvious that the ego, even if it was like a super sincere seeker, it still wanted to get God for me. It was reality, like 100%. And then when you realize that actually that has like nothing to do with anything, and all of that is just completely like redundant and irrelevant, but at the same time it kind of can seemingly continue, and that's also fine. But it's like a total paradigm shift, basically. And I think I'm really seeing and experiencing the actuality of that, not just like theoretically, like, oh, it's like a different life. It's like as Guruji says, the clock gets turned like inside out. And I think that's how I also, something feels like very different than if it's just sort of like a glimpse or a momentary insight that the mind then like conceptualizes and becomes something that it knows, because as you say, it feels very alive, and it also can't be like
That's what it attempts to do, because it just feels like, because that is a habit also, that we find something and then we say, okay, what does this mean? So now to break that, like what we were talking about earlier also, and allow that to just percolate by itself. Initially it can seem a bit unnerving also. Now finding the truth, is this it? You see, the mind can prod us with these questions.
Yeah, it still feels, there's something about it that feels edgy, and like the most natural at the same time. Sorry, can I say one
Yeah.
thing? And also the fact that like you literally pretty much don't need the mind ever.
You never need the mind, yes.
Like I think that's been another huge kind of like, because now it seems quite clear that like mental chatter, like incessant mind stream, was just kind of a part of like daily reality, and so that the contrast now of like the actual like stillness and silence and the it's so crazy, like the mind couldn't fathom how completely unnecessary it is, obviously. But then when you see it, it's kind of like, whoa. Yeah.
That's why I resisted the need to categorize and say practical things and spiritual things, all of that, because that which is running this whole world can run our so-called practical life.
And the word insipid, I think you used this word maybe in the last satsang, but yeah, that it's so clear that like its interpretations or its labelings or whatever is just, and I love the example, like I think that was really helpful somehow, the example that you gave about what is happening right now.
Yeah.
You know, and if we tried to like categorize it or classify it, we could never even encapsulate like just a tiny fractional fragment of what this is, let alone the depth of all there is beyond, you know. Like, so I don't know, I just wanted to share that has been really helpful, and that is feeling more and more evident and obvious.
Because in our fanciest narratives, we're never able to capture one ray of light.
Like as you say, it's completely the wrong tool. Yeah.
So I was saying that as we discover this, most of the me gets cleaned up. But be careful of this mind trick which will say it should be 100%. Because that itself can keep the rest of it alive. And then with that one, you can transform into like a spiritual ego, very strong achiever in spirituality, empty of me, all this, the me that remains, which proclaims an emptiness of me, is a very, very dangerous one. Should be careful of that. We meet many of those in spirituality, especially in chai shops and things like that. There's no me left. There's just no me. Just be very careful of those. Because all the sages have reported that a remnant of the me remains for even the highest sage. So it is important to keep that one head bowed down in servitude to God. Not a spiritual achiever, overachiever. That one is very detrimental because that kind of ego will never listen to even satsang like this because it knows everything. Oh yeah, nice. You had a few over the years. But inherent in that is a deep sense of insecurity. Because in the heart they know that this guy, the me that's still acting out like that, is not healthy.
Yeah, that was me before I came back.
So he variant of spiritual ego is like that. Like I know this, I know.
Yeah. But I also couldn't even see it because it felt so.
So true. We're saying the same stuff, probably. Saying the same stuff.
Yeah.
And confirming it, but that's why I'm saying the difference between belief and faith. See, it relies on believing spiritual concepts. I know this, I know that. Faith is to be empty-fisted, reliant only on heart, reliant only on God's presence.
Mind wants to constantly validate it.
Yeah.
Constantly validate it.
Correct, because it's fearful. It doesn't have a solid foundation, so it constantly needs to prop itself up. So the minute it gets approval, certification, verification, it's like, yes, yes, yes. It's constantly insecure because it doesn't last.
And it will also say that, yes, but Father said it's light of every light. I can't see that yet.
Yeah.
It's trying to prove wrong using some or the other way. You know this.
It's the biggest changes the relationship one is having with one's mind. Like it's very, very fast changing. It's amazing.
Yeah. It goes from a deep obedience and reverence to the words of the mind. You see, although the mind will never admit that it is servitude to the mind, you see, to like an indifference. You see? It's good. It has nothing to do with anything. So it just becomes an indifference like that. So that which we were so obsessed with, and say, oh, yes, like that. It's a completely different way of life. The way of the head and the way of the heart. You may say happen to the same person, but it really doesn't. Who we are when we are obedient to the mind and servitude to the mind is very different from when we are in service to the heart. So that which is left of us must be a servant of God. And that which is protesting that there is nothing left of me or whatever, that is the one. That is the one that must be in servitude. Hey, they're like, but in reality, nothing is left of me. There's nothing, no me. Who will become this? That one. That that is the one that I'm talking about. That one is a spiritual overachiever or wants to be unaware of things. That one we must keep surrendering to God.
Father, you were saying that presence, that peanut-sized presence, find it omnipresent. Is
Is
the
that
same.
right?
Like it appears small
Where?
somewhere inside, some here. And you're saying use the same tool with which you know the presence to know its omnipresence or that. But the tool I'm not able to find. This presence is some that small peanut something,
Yes.
but
That you're saying is a perception.
yeah.
So you're using perception to find that, and I've often said that is the tip of the iceberg or the hand of God, because we're so attached to name and form. You see that God has to do so much. So He has to first send us a form in the form of a master. I've not seen one who has come to freedom without a master. First sends us a form in the form of a master. Then that form has to tell us about the form of the primordial vibration within ourselves as a window into the unfathomable presence. So that is why a question like, what is the boundary of your presence? Really becomes like a koan for you. Because at some level you can perceive it as a pulsation, a heart vibration. And yet, why are you unable to answer that? Like very few of you are able to say peanut size. Because you're not relying on just the perception of it, and neither are you. You're just communicating. But when you're asked, so where does it start and where does it end? You should be able to say, oh, it's like that here. You should be able to plot it out, but you can't. You see? So, with which instrument do you know that you can't?
I can't plot it anywhere in
Yes.
space.
Yes. That you can't find the boundary of it. How do you know? With what? With which instrument?
I don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
So, okay, find the boundary. Where's the boundary of this presence?
Still don't.
If you were relying just on perception, then you would say, here, like that. I don't feel it here. I feel it like that. You see? So now, because of that, the mind can say, okay, I can rely. Just like things, where is the straw? You can determine based on the perception of it. But if I was to just ask you, so what is the boundary of your presence?
I want to say peanut again. It's
I know,
still
but something is stopping you.
Yeah.
Something is stopping you because there's another source of knowledge which is not letting you say
Yeah.
the same source of knowledge which doesn't accept that the death of this body will be our death. It makes even the most atheist people write R.I.P. when people die. Same. Like birth and death are not natural concepts for us, for any of us. You may say this body was born, this body will die. But that I will be not there is very tough, because this, just like you're unable to deny the boundlessness of your presence, or at least that you can't find its boundary, you cannot so easily accept the end of yourself. Because intuitively, your intuition is screaming at you, not screaming in that way, but apparently showing you that you are deathless. Like when I got into spirituality, if somebody had told me there's a room in which, if a question is asked, have you met God within yourself? And most people not there, it's even though they may be little doubting themselves, whatever, but most not there, though it's not possible. You see, because God realization, that is very, very rare. So I used to say earlier, because some were convinced that it's like that. No? So I said, okay, so 7 billion people, or that time maybe 6.5 billion people. So what are the odds? 1 in a million? So if 7 billion, then how many will find God? If the odds are 1 in a million. Come on.
70.
Huh?
I don't know.
700 million. 700 million?
So 700 will find, no?
700 million.
Correct. So if 1 in a million are the odds, therefore then 7 billion is 7,000 million.
Yeah.
So 7,000 will find. 700 million is 700 million. 7 billion is 7,000 million.
7,000 million.
So 7,000 will find.
Reverse.
So out of 7,000, if there are 15 is possible. That counters the mathematical argument. The rarity of it is the rarity of wanting only this. And not wanting this so that something else for me. So this God for me, like you were saying earlier, is the prevalent notion of spirituality. I want God so that I can be happy, so that I something. That me is always paramount. So therefore we are actually worshipping the me more than God, and God is just a means towards making that me happy. So the world is in a state of me worship. How will they find God? And you imagine like a cocktail room conversation. What do you find going to Satsang? I find God. Okay, but what did you get? That is the contradiction there, right? You always feel good now. You always have peace. Or do you have some siddhis? It's still like, okay, God, okay, but so then what did you get? But God, you found God. This is the absurdity. That's why I have to come into this room and every day say, God, we're talking about God. The God, the one God. That's the absurdity. The living being called God. Not like a continent of Antarctica or something. Very deep within. There. It's sitting over there. Out of it is spouting like Antarctica may have petroleum and things. So out of it is spouting love. God is an actual being. God is an actual being. And we call it beingness. It's a funny one. Even in Advaita, we call it being. It will be like, their being is there, and then we have no being other than God. Certainly simple.
Because when you meet God, you ask God, why?
Yeah.
If you otherwise, but it was funny. We were thinking actually, then there's no me left.
Right? But it's better than I got what you're saying, but also that mostly we just want to speculate about it. Because we feel like it's very rare to meet God. Let's just speculate. Why can't we just meet God and say, throw a tantrum with God? Why is my life like this? And we wait for God to say whose life, if He said that. And if all that sounds too absurd and unrealistic and not possible, then are we spiritual? What does it mean to be spiritual? Because if we are spiritual and we still then, but can God actually be found? Can how be spiritual? You talk to these people who will tell you it's rare, not possible, lofty, and yet they consider themselves religious and spiritual. Most of them will say, why?
Questions which these people ask. Mind also asks that question many times.
Same. Those people are just a representation of that same doubting Thomas.
So,
Then that thing that the presence is the source, I still look at it like that, like some oil bursting out.
volcano.
Volcano kind of thing.
Find out. Of course, all these we say in Satsang all these things, but find out how that is true, if it is true, in what way does it happen. You say love comes out from God. God is the source of love. Like that. Then find out how. Is it a biological reaction, a chemical reaction? What is it? How does it come? What is the source? Dive in and find out. Is it just feel good poetry? God is the source of love. I was never good at this stuff. I was going in a car that day and my daughter was listening to a Hindi song. And it had some words, it was just like very beautiful actually. It says, मैं इश्क करूँ या इबादत. Basically saying that it's the same thing, whether I love or I pray, it's the same. So somewhere, even popular culture, all these things are being shared, but we look at it only poetically, metaphorically. Because all unconditional love is for God alone. So to love God is to pray to God. Beautiful. And all the kids are singing this stuff, hearing this stuff. What is the difficulty? Difficulty is only one question. What about me? You may not realize that is the question. Really, it is. What about me? All this is fine, but what about me? In Advaita Vedanta, we made God into like flavors of ice cream. Oh, that is not awareness. No, that is the beingness. That is awareness. This has become very scientific and very. It's lots. Many times it's in our understanding of Vedanta, we made it very soulless. We were like scientific explorers. Ah, yes, I found. You found? No, I found. No, you are speaking from beingness. I am speaking from awareness. Huh? Or was yours speaking from ego? I am speaking from God. This kind of integration. These kids used to. Where are you coming from? Where are you coming from? And all that while God is waiting. Are they talking about me? Why? Anger is coming. Then the last question that remains is that if all this is true, then how should we live? The answer to that is very simple. To live in God's will is to be guided by the presence moment to moment. Either in the form of action directly. The guidance doesn't always have to be like, do this. When it's empty, like these words are sprouting out of this mouth with no plan or no idea about what is going to be said next. The same way actions unfold. That is to live in God's will, and when guidance is received, then to follow that unwaveringly. And when we are not able to follow unwaveringly, to bring that into our prayer and ask for help in being able to follow God's guidance unwaveringly. What will help is if you don't expect ease. In the sense that don't expect it to always be easy. We were talking about this in some way. That actually it makes life very simple. But the direction may not always seem easy to follow. Simple in the sense that there is no conflict because you are guided about what is to be done. Most of our time, our life is complex because we are choosing between options. I don't know what to do, this, that. So that guidance is available to us. So that makes the things very simple. But it may not sound easy to always follow that guidance. Although mostly it is accompanied by a sense of ease, a sense of peace. And sometimes you get a guidance and you're like, what? What? Are you sure this is not wrong number?
When it is going against all your sensibilities or
ideas about who we are. That's how to live. Then living in that way, then our life becomes a temple to God. Becomes a true representation of God's life. And then naturally, without us looking or getting intuition, naturally those who are drawn to God's light will get drawn to us and receive His grace through our guidance. That is a spiritual journey, so to speak.
With God's voice, in my experience so far, like you're saying, one is like God's will, living in God's will, or His following His command. One is just moving empty. One is still learning, but feels like it's a clear voice that says, do this, say this. One is just like a knowing, like it's much quieter than it's still something. It's not just empty, like it's like a no, like
Yes.
just like an example, like every time I go into the car, I have to get my slippers. I'm not able to wear it, even if it's a cab. And I noticed today I came in a cab and I just like my mind is like it's dirty, My heart just it was not like remove your slippers. You just know. But also like if you can say more, like you said, like even say a guidance comes to somebody, that's also like a command.
Yes, so when we are empty here, that is the time when we are truly knowing anyway. You see, when it is said that we are empty, that is when the truth is known. You see? And we can use that also as a tool to check whether we are actually following our heart or our mind is tricking us. Not that anything you said was a mind trick, but we can just
I
check.
find it more difficult when the words come inside. When it says, like, something I had to share with you today, and there was no guidance. I just waited, and I heard the voice saying, "Say yes." But I kept asking, Father, is this your voice? Because I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I'm not sure that I'm living in. It's a little hazy in that when it is empty or when that quiet voice is there. It's like I have to be in Satsang, I have to know my slippers. It's very clear for me. But this, when it comes as a guidance, sometimes I'm not. I'm like, is that a thought? I can see it's the mind doubting sometimes, but I'm not sure.
Okay, so let me break it down in as much slow motion as possible. Okay, so first is that our intention to follow God's will, if it is true and it is innocent, and we follow that intention, even if the mind is tricking us, but our intention is to follow God's will, then God will take care of that. You see, many times what happens is that's why I said innocent, because many times we want to be smart about it and say, my intention is to follow God's will, but we can smell it inside somewhere that it's coming from the mind. You see, so we're trying to fool ourselves and thinking we are fooling God in the process. That doesn't work. But truly, if with innocence our intention is to follow God's will, then even if we are following the mind, we'll be fine. Firstly, that is the important reassurance. You see? So it's not that God is running this world anyway, right? So He's not going to take our true intentions and make bad stuff out of it. So if we are truly intention to be a servant to God, but we've listened to the mind thinking it is God, God will take care of that situation first. Secondly, how to know if the command is coming from God? I've given you the filters, you can use them. The presence of unconditional love, or the presence is
Like, somewhere, as soon as you say it, my mind, like I believe this thought that I'm not sure. I'm not. Something doesn't want to just.
Yes, okay, so we'll come to that point. I'll just finish these three things. So, the presence of unconditional love, is a good indicator that it's coming from the heart. The presence of the presence itself, if it is palpable, that's a good indication that it's coming from the heart. But most foolproof is if your reality is apparent to you, and these words are coming in that apparency.
See, the catch here is I feel like in some instances, like the yes when it came, the reality is apparent, and then this voice comes, and the doubt is, when the
But we
reality is
have to be
apparent, the thought
careful.
can also come.
Yeah,
You know,
but we have to
so-
be careful that it is not that earlier thing
No,
that we
no.
talked normal about, which is that inside our reality is apparent. Now what? You see, it shouldn't be like a switching
I
in the
didn't
sense
hear
that there can be a switching. No? So what was the thing we were talking about?
So if you are like presence or reality, then mind would like to validate all what you say.
Correct.
Okay,
So it's
whether
like,
it
but I
is
don't feel like
the light of God in
yeah, that this is all happening in the light of God, for example, because we discover the presence intuitively, but then we give it to the mind and say, hey, what do you think? Is it? So when I'm saying use the third tool, which is that your reality should be apparent to you
It's just apparent.
in that moment
It's
itself.
apparent.
It shouldn't be like, apparent hai. Acha, now, it shouldn't. It's not like a license from the past. It's a live
Yes.
thing. Yes. So if there, then that can be trusted
So
as.
when the reality is apparent,
Yes.
a thought can also come, no? A thought can come.
Yes, but you
It's
will.
not believed.
When your reality is apparent, your intuitive powers are at their highest. They're at their peak. You see, because they can only be apparent intuitively. So very quickly you will be able to discard if a thought comes. It'll just be nothing. It'll be garbage. It'll just like because your intuition is so strongly alive when your truth is apparent to you that the fragrance of heart guidance and versus the mind's ramblings will be
So
very,
this doubt
very
is
clear.
like I'm believing a thought. Whether this is a voice of the heart.
Yes. So, but there's nothing wrong with even this.
Yeah.
So, what you're doing, you should continue doing. So, if there's guidance but there's doubt,
Yeah.
then you must keep taking it back to God and saying,
Yeah.
please guide me, I'm not sure.
Yes, that's and like the conversation I had in the morning, it was very wholehearted. I told him like, I just want to be your servant. I want to follow your command, but you have to teach me how to listen to you because there are many times that I feel I'm not sure, and because different voices come and I'm scared. I'm scared because it could be such a trick
Yeah.
to just be lost thinking you're following God.
Exactly.
And it feels very new somehow.
It's very good. It's very good. So this is how we learn and establish ourselves more and more in the way of the heart. Development of trust happens in that way. You see, and the fragrance will become more and more apparent.
Just learning to be more, just like give it more time. When it comes, just nothing, there's no need. Like you said once, you don't have to rush
Yes.
with God's voice. Because initially, when you started teaching us, it was felt like, but I'm not following God's will. What if that's God's voice and I'm not following His will? That was so mindy. It's just like,
If there is doubt, just don't move. Don't act on anything. Just keep checking.
when, like there is, when I said disbelief, there is that disbelief in the mind that God, you can talk to God and God will answer and God is actually, there is some disbelief somewhere, you know? Like it's so new.
That is the power of conditioning.
Yeah.
That this seems unnatural, but to
Yeah.
talk to people seems natural.
Yes.
Which is actually the other way around.
Even when you say it, something's feeling like, even though I knew that conversation was so alive,
Yes.
some disbelief is there, you know? That God,
Yeah. Sometimes the
listening,
mind
God is
creates
talking.
like a fantasy around it. Talking to God.
Mm.
It removes the naturalness from it and make it very something
Yeah.
strange.
This
It
is
has
like a
all
very
tricks of
innocent
its.
talking. You're just
Exactly.
being naked in front of God.
Absolutely.
Learning all of the way.
I think can relate what she's saying is because the only proof for reality till now is those two things, right? Perception and conception. And this is beyond that. And every time mind comes and see, because till now the reality is only which I can see.
Seeing is
feel.
believing.
And if rest everything is humbug. So, so this you know.
Balderdash. So, reminded me of Jeeves and Wooster. Humbug.
Father, it's clear that there is another kind of knowing, intuitive, the heart guiding, which is becoming more clearer. But as you said, I am checking the validity of it with using the mind. When I have a heart guidance, it's clear it is from the heart, but I check it with my mind or somebody else's mind to see it's true.
तुम्हें क्या लगता है?
And I think in democracy we like, it's like if more people believe, then only we agree. Otherwise, why would I agree? Or to take votes from everybody before I say it's true.
That's the trouble. What is popular seems to be true.
Is it okay if I just like sideline all of that for now?
Sideline all of yes.
Yeah.
Guidance
I just
part,
right
yeah.
now I'm like kind of just in my honeymooning and I don't really, it doesn't feel attractive or I don't really care like whether I'm receiving guidance or
Yes.
it's just like, is that okay with us?
It's really uncanny.
Advaita was saying also that we were saying that too, like the guidance has always been here.
Yeah.
It's just that we have been so busy with the mind, we just never heard it. And now this is feeling like it's a learning.
Yeah.
To learn how to listen to your own self.
This is important. This humility is important. We must always feel like we are beginners, we are learning.
That which is the most natural to hear has become like a big learning.
Okay, I see. In a manner of speaking, actually there is no intuitively we can't say that yes, now my intuition is being really sharp, although I just said that, but in a manner of speaking, in the sense that it is so clearly intuitive, like the recognition of ourself as awareness is so pristinely and purely only intuitive, because no perception, nothing can fathom that to any extent. That is what I was trying to convey with being sharply intuitive. We can't sit and sharpen our intuition. We can decondition ourselves from relying on the mind and relying more on the intuition, so that we may call a sharpening our intuition, but actually intuition has always been sharp. But our reliance comes more and more on that. So it's a manner of speaking. So initially we'll try by throwing some test bullets. Okay? Let's see if it works. We'll say something about relationships, something about Sangha, something about pictures, whatever, some topic. If it doesn't land, it's gone. But the minute something lands, when you start saying, then it goes. Then it's just a war, right? It's just trying to get you back when something succeeded in working. So we have to be careful of. Otherwise, we can just say, little bit here and there, I can believe. How does it hurt? It hurts because of that. The minute you get interested in something like that, then it just forces it full on.
The interest is to get back, and the mind is
If always the interest is to get back and not in the mind, then there will be no trouble getting back.
the mind is trying to get back. That is no problem.
Look at it. So, if your interest lies in coming back to God, and not interested in the mind at all, then nothing the mind can say will make you hold you back. What happens is many times we feel like, yes, I want God, but also, what are you saying? Yeah, like that only, no? She's like that only. Some judgment, some being right, something. In the garb of, yes, I really want God, but I also want to know, I want to be right. So we have to return to a complete innocence at the cost of it seeming very wobbly also. Like you don't know. It cannot convince you if truly what you want in your heart is God. Then your need to conclude or to be right or to judge cannot be that strong. You cannot have both. But the mind says, no, it's good. I want God only. Look at me. I really love God. I want God so much. But at the same time, you love your judgments, your convictions, your knowledge. So that's when it becomes difficult. It seems like you're having to juggle, or it seems like an oscillation. To not be right about everything, in fact, to be wrong about everything, and to live in God, or to be right about everything but not living in God. What do you prefer? That is the question ultimately. You have to drop everything that you think you are right about. Suppose you have a nemesis, and you always considered that nemesis to be wrong about everything and yourself to be right about everything. But God said to you and said, you have to bow down in front of that nemesis and admit that they were right about everything, but I will live in your heart. What will you do? So, our ability to admit that we don't know to the extent that we are wrong about everything we think we know, then makes us innocent enough to meet God. But if we are attached to righteousness, if we are attached to wanting to be right, wanting to know things, then God will just remain conceptual to us. Or a rarity, when we give ourselves a break from being right. Try to not be right. So be careful of any false humility, because in humility also sometimes you feel like there's a pride in humility. You know what I mean? We are pridefully humble. I'm so humble. Like I'm so humble, look at the world, it's so proud. I'm so humble. We have to be humble. I'm so humble. God, I'm so humble. It's just pride. It's pure pride.
Most humble.
Huh?
Most
I'm
humble.
the most humble. Look at all these people, they come to you. They don't have you in their heart. I do. I'm so humble. So humility is very important. True humility.
When I remember once you said it, you can say yes, I'll do it. But when you really have to do it, that's when you really get testing. No? I mean, otherwise, you can say yes, whatever Father says I'm going to do it, and you genuinely mean it at that time. I mean, it's not as if you're lying or something. You're not pretending. But when it really comes to following that instruction,
It's a biblical story. No?
Yeah.
It's a biblical story. A father had two sons. Jesus said.
Yeah, I know.
A father had two sons. Maybe I'm mistelling it. But one son would always say yes, but never do it. And the other son would just say, no, I won't do it. Then which is the better son?
No, I don't know.
Let's be honest.
No,
of course, in the
but what I'm
biblical
saying-
story, the second son says no, but later realizes and does it. But the first one says yes, everything. Never says no to father, but not done anything with it.
No, okay. What I'm
It's
trying-
linked to that the road to hell is paved with good intention.
Yeah.
And most of us are like that in the world. We know all the right stuff, you see, but we just like tomorrow. We have good intentions, but tomorrow. When will we surrender to God? Tomorrow.
Can I just check one thing? So, see, before I came to Satsang, and I so one would talk to God, and every day, in a real way, and I would really have an answer or not, right? But then when I came to Satsang, and then I recognized that what I was asking, or where I was asking from, let's say, from my ego, from that false need for those things, or for, it could be like, okay, help me do that, or, like, whatever. That place was only down from where it was
Yeah.
being asked.
But the filter of that, the filter for that, to check whether I should pray on it or is it selfish or not to pray on this, is that, as I've been saying, that if you're going to spend time worrying about it,
Yeah.
then don't say it is selfish to pray for it, because you're going to waste time worrying about it anyway. Right? So just pray on it and say, please help me with this, I'm not able to deal with it. But if you're empty about it, then it's fine.
No, so that's what I'm checking. So when you said that if I will, you just stay motionless or emptiness and don't take a position, then
So I'm saying that
yeah,
don't take a position,
correct.
but prayer is a better position than worry.
No, I see that. I hear that. So when you now say to talk to God or whatever, I don't know if I don't have a position truly, then what should I ask? I mean, like, what would I ask?
Yes. I'm not saying
Yeah.
necessarily that we have to communicate in that way.
Correct.
To be in communion is different than to communicate, because I'm saying communion.
Yeah.
Because communion is to be in the presence of God, is to commune together. It's like satsang. So be in communion with God. Now, in that communion, if communication happens, then fine. If it doesn't happen, then fine.
I see.
But you don't have to have new conversations with God, kneel, Donald watch. If those are happening, it's fine. And if they're not happening, it's fine.
But like you just said, like when we're in satsang, you are. I mean, you know when you are in that heart presence, you know that.
Yeah. And I've given you the tools to check.
It's just
The presence of unconditional love, the presence of presence, and the apparency of your reality as the self.
These are the 3 ways to
Confirm that you are coming from the heart, you're following your heart guidance.
Father, I had this thing about the ADS. Like we talked before, I used to think this being something in space, no? Even now when I do the ADS, that power samadhi thing. So to love God, I still take it to be that thing only and still try to love it. Is that okay, or as a makeshift
But is
thing?
the love arising?
Yeah, sort of.
It's a relentless letting go of the limited self. As long as the allegiance is to the limited self, God will just remain conceptual and notional. जब मैं था तब रब नहीं, जब रब था तब मैं नहीं. So it's a relentless letting go of the limited self, because the lane is too narrow to have both God and me. If there is a me, there cannot be God, and if there is God, there cannot be me. So if God was a living reality for you right now, how would your life be different? What would you worry about? Are you still worrying? If you are worrying, means that you're not taking God to be a reality. You've taken it to be on the me. But when there is a me, there is no God. What else? What would make you unhappy? Conflicted? Oppressed? That's what I mean when I say that we may all believe in the concept of God, but we don't live as if God is a reality. And for all of us, there is no excuse because we are meeting God. I promise you that the presence that you're meeting within is God's presence. There is no other presence but God. So your mind is the doubting mind which will keep saying, am I, is it happening, will it happen? So throw it away. Throw it away, remain empty, remain humble. So God is here as your presence. Now, what do you have to fix? What do you have to solve? So whatever remains of you now, let that be in service to God. Either there's a you that is lost in God's presence, therefore there is no such me remaining. Or the servant of God. There is no other position. Lost in God or servant of God. No selfishness, no what about me, when will it happen, what's happening to me, none of that. Be, yeah. No, yes, but, yeah. Fully with you, Father, fully. One thing. None of that. Nothing for me. Nothing for me. Only God. And any other position that we pick up, we're actually saying that God, you are not real. Because this needs me to come alive. Needs my mind. Needs me to fix. Which is basically saying that you're just a notional idea. This presence belongs to me. You see, the mind is the conspiracy to take over the presence individually. It's just God's presence. This Atma belongs to God, not to the ego. To encroach upon it as if it is personal is the play of mind. That is the whole game of I am something. The minute you attach the something to it, you've encroached upon God's presence. So don't ask why God would let that happen. Stop it. Stop it. Don't understand it. You can't surrender and understand at the same time. Understanding is a function of rationality, and nobody who's being rational will ever surrender. The rationality will always point you to some possibility of winning egotistically. Still win at this. That's why Guruji says run out of moves. When you run out of moves, means your rational mind is given up. Don't be rational. Don't be irrational. So don't hear it as if I'm saying be irrational. Just don't go to your head either way. Live in your heart.
I can still say that I feel that I understand in my heart that that question is no more relevant.
Yes. It's losing its grip. The need to understand loosens its grip in the presence of God's light.
You are trying to say that came as an understanding.
Yes, your heart understanding is what you know intuitively, but you don't have a rational reason for it. It's like unconditional love. You start to sense it more and more. When you're in the heart, it will seem like a cool shadow. Is it like a cooling shadow of a beautiful tree? When you're in your head, it will seem like contracted, difficult. So heaven and hell are both here. Where you choose to live is up to you. Moment to moment. You can't book a room permanently in either. Nobody can come to a point where they can say, now I'll always be in heaven only in God's light. Because if you become egotistical in that moment, you're out. And nobody can say, I'm such a sinner, God will never give me place in his heart. It's not possible. But moment by moment, thought by thought, every thought has to go. Has to go. Even if it is spiritual, humble, everything. And when pride comes, then remember you're just a servant to God. Just a servant. A servant of God is the highest we can ever be. So what is the battleground? Yeah.
The battleground is moment to moment.
Moment to moment, thought by thought.
Yes.
If you buy into the thought, you're in the living experience of hell. Even if it feels right and good temporarily, it's bound to lead to trouble. Suffering is the tail of this. PAIL and the TALE. And if you let it go and stay with your presence,
So if everything feels right and good, it can be separate.
even if it feels, the mind will propose a lot of things, no? Which will seem like, oh, but I'm right, I know this is correct. Ye to sachi hai. Like this, I will not even follow Guruji. No? This is right only. No? Those we have to leave first. You see? So that innocence will come once we leave our strongly held notion. You see? And that is why in satsang there, I feel like in every satsang we lose a lot of those. And when we lose them, we don't realize what we've let go of. Because they're gone. It's good. So it works in that way also. A lot of conditions, a lot of righteousness. Who else but God could have made this play? All its layers and intricacy and intelligence. And we can look everywhere and say, wow, okay, that is nature, that is this, that is this, that is science, that is physics, that is. Look at all this stuff happening. Biology.
Everything is so harmonious. Everything just
It's just something. This, like, in all the creation, maintenance and destruction is still very harmonious. Who else could have done this? And made himself hidden in plain sight. Hmm? The whole world is saying God, God, God. Some look at the skies, some look on top of mountains, some look in rivers, some look. And God, of course, is everywhere. But simplest is right here in your heart. As your very being, as your very presence. So when Kabirji said, open the cloth, find the ruby, don't leave this world a beggar. Who was he talking about? Sabke palle laal. Everybody has the cloth which has the emerald in it, ruby in it, but nobody looks, and we die a beggar. Who is he talking to? He's talking to you, me. Yeah? And not that none of all of us want to look. We all have this good intention. You see? But tomorrow, nobody wants to surrender fully to God today because we got stuff to do.
What's the way to surrender now?
Yes, to let go moment to moment, thought by thought. That is the only battleground. You see, so all that I'm telling you is the pep-up speech for when the mind tempts you, for you to be able to back it off. It's just the pep-up rally for that moment in the battleground. You see? Like when Krishna spoke to Arjuna, in that moment he just wanted Arjuna to fire when the time was right. So all that was the pep-up speech for him to fire. In the same way, the mind will tempt you just after satsang, or maybe here itself. You say, no, this is not right, something is unfair, some nonsense. You see? And with this, hopefully, the spiritual vitamins will be high. Oh, you. That is the battleground. Your love, your faith, your devotion is the battleground. Is the vitamins for the battleground. Your humility. All these are important things for when the moment comes. Because the moment comes in the guise of great harmlessness. I'm just telling you this is how it is. No. And it makes you into somebody which is not neither the one that is one with God nor the one that is a servant of God. It makes you into somebody special, somebody right. Don't let the mind ever convince you that something else is the problem. It's only the next thought. And there is no hope if you keep buying the next thought and hoping that we'll live in God's light. And there is full hope that if you leave your next thought, you are living in God's light. You can open the door to hell and expect heaven. In the same way that you cannot dive into heaven and expect to fall into hell. Empty of conceptual knowledge, it is my blessing and prayer that your heart will shine. But you have to give yourself that chance. Be empty. Come what may. Otherwise, the circle repeats. Dunya se gaya kangal. Kabirji said, what is dunya se gaya kangal? Godless. Maybe a billionaire. But godless in Kabir's eyes is kangal.
I would just like to share that I feel that there's been like a big shift, and for a long time I felt like really identified with the one who was like always ready to disbelieve the next thought. And I even, have like Shiva's Trishul tattooed on me, like at the ready to like destroy like anything that's not real. And somehow, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but that was like keeping my focus on the mind and keeping the interest and the attention on the mind and sort of being ever at the ready. And now it's like something has just, a complete like shift in focus is like, oh my God, the other way is you can just completely fall in love with that beauty and perfection that is beyond the mind and just be so like faithful and like wanting to honor that you don't even, then when the mind comes it's like do you know what I mean?
Yes, and all this spiritual presence, all the spiritual sharing is to rev up the light, so that we become indifferent to this. But in everybody's life, as much as we may love God deeply, the mind will always have a trick or two up its sleeve. So it will always have a button or two it can press. So that's what I meant by guerrilla warfare. So when that moment comes,
Yes. And that actually happened a lot when I was in Tiru. So the mind hadn't really got like this past, I don't know, since I was here last like a month and a half or something, it's just felt like easy. Just so easy to like bask in God's light. And like it's just been unparalleled in like the joy and the bliss and the wow, and then being in Tiru and like going to sit in the meditation hall at Ravana Ashram. And it was sort of a bit like, wow, what's happening? But it's really cool. And that's when like I needed more like the weapons to, but actually, do you have any sense of like why that would?
it's good. Sometimes it's just releasing sometimes it's important to go through that so we don't become arrogant or complacent in any way.
And it definitely triggered a little bit of like, oh no, what's happening?
Yeah.
Because
I
especially
don't want
if
to
it's
lose it,
felt
right?
if it's felt effortless and then if it feels effortful again, then yeah, that sort of that felt like, oh, this one's got a bit of bite, but then it was also seeing that it's still the same.
Treat, if there is ease, treat it as a blessing
Yeah.
rather than like an entitlement. Many times this is not going to be easy. And many times we get caught in this because we get used to the ease. Because many times we can just feel very effortless. And sometimes when deeply held conditions start to play out and they're using external seeming circumstances to collaborate, and then our mind is judging and saying, yes, yes, it's like this only. So it's not easy in those times. So don't expect it to be easy.